Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Nama saya adalah Yusnita Febrianti, dosen Departemen Sastra Inggris, Fakultas Sastra Universitas Negeri Malang. RPS ini adalah RPS yang disusun dengan standar AQUAS, merupakan RPS untuk mata kuliah Asian Studies. Mata kuliah Asian Studies adalah mata kuliah elektif di lingkungan Departemen Sastra Inggris, terutama untuk mahasiswa bahasa dan sastra Inggris. Mata kuliah ini ditujukan agar mahasiswa mengenal budaya dan bahasa di sekitar Asia, sehingga dapat mengembangkan critical thinking dan pengetahuan mengenai bagaimana bekerja sama dengan kolega-kolega di Asia, dan bagaimana kita bisa menjadi orang yang lebih objektif, memahami di mana konteks tempat kita tinggal, dan sebagainya. Tujuan pembelajaran dibagi menjadi dua, yaitu sesuai dengan Intended Learning Outcomes atau ILO untuk sarjana sastra di program studi bahasa dan sastra Inggris, yang terdiri dari Foundational Knowledge and Skills, Academic and Professional Knowledge and Skills, Interpersonal and Intrapersonal Knowledge and Skills. Sedangkan tujuan yang kedua yaitu Course Learning Outcomes atau CLO, yang berhubungan dengan mata kuliah Asian Studies itu sendiri. Jadi secara umum, tujuan mata kuliah ini adalah to trace historical specificity of the social construction of ethnic identity, in this case with the example of Asia, apply critical theories in understanding the social construction of Asian identity, synthesize literary theories and critical theories in their efforts to understand the representations of Asia, evaluate and synthesize literature to be used as sources for developing an argumentative essay, deploying good common written language to rhetorically build strong arguments, develop quality discussion, argumentative essay which have clear structure, justifiable significance and objectives, appreciate the design, conduct and reporting of original research, communicate the essay plan through classroom level webinar, and evaluate the quality of developed essay plans by giving constructive comments and feedbacks to fellow students in the classroom level seminar. Bahan bacaan yang akan diberikan dalam mata kuliah ini sudah diberikan sesuai list dan diberikan baik secara keseluruhan maupun secara parsial dalam berbagai materi yang akan diberikan kepada mahasiswa dalam mata kuliah Asian Studies. Mata kuliah ini merupakan mata kuliah yang terdiri dari 2 SKS, sehingga akan diberikan dalam 16 pertemuan. Dalam presentasi video ini, nanti saya akan mempresentasikan mata kuliah pada pertemuan ketiga, yaitu Constructing Asia as an Orient, Reading Said's Orientalism. Tujuan dari pertemuan tersebut adalah membahas pemahaman konsep orientalisme, analisa relevansi konsep mempelajari budaya Asia untuk Departemen Sastra Inggris, memahami berbagai karya sastra atau produk-produk budaya yang lainnya yang berhubungan dengan orientalisme, dengan perspektif Asia, dan memahami orientalisme serta perspektifnya terhadap Asia yang masih relevan dengan abad 21 dan merespon pada berbagai pertanyaan yang diberikan oleh pengampu mata kuliah dalam proses pembelajaran dan merespon atau memberikan komentar kepada teman sejawat dalam proses mata kuliah. Dalam mata kuliah ini secara keseluruhan pada pertemuan ke-8 akan diberikan midterm exam yang berisi case study kecil di mana mahasiswa akan diminta untuk memberikan pendapat mereka untuk memberikan solusi mengenai isu-isu yang terjadi di Asia. Setelah mata kuliah dilanjutkan pada pertemuan ke-9 dan seterusnya, maka yang akan terjadi pada final meeting atau pertemuan akhir adalah mahasiswa akan diminta memberikan sebuah proyek dalam bentuk argumentative essay yang akan menjawab isu-isu yang ada di Asia. Secara keseluruhan, penilaian mahasiswa akan dilihat dari attendance and participation, midterm exam, case study paper, presentation, dan argumentative essay. Secara keseluruhan, masing-masing 10%, 25%, 20, 15, 30%, sehingga akan terakumulasi hingga 100%. Rubrik untuk student participation tidak hanya kehadiran tetapi juga kualitas partisipasi mereka di dalam kelas. Untuk midterm exam, assessment akan dilakukan dari hasil case study mahasiswa dalam penggunaan bahasa, struktur, critical issues, dan referensi yang digunakan. Case study paper akan dilihat dengan melihat rubrik yang sama. Dalam kegiatan presentasi, mahasiswa juga akan dilihat bagaimana presentasi diberikan dalam organisasi yang baik, isi yang baik, visual, dan penyampaian yang baik. Untuk essay final sebagai tugas akhir dalam mata kuliah ini, dalam rubrik akan dilihat bahasa yang digunakan, struktur yang digunakan, critical issue yang diangkat, kemudian argumen dan diskusi, serta referensi yang digunakan. Demikian penjelasan dari RPS mata kuliah Asian Studies.
A little bit from the previous meeting. That is first. Second of all, everyone, we are going to learn about the Orientalism today. Orientalism, when you hear the name, it's probably something that you can guess what it's going to be, okay? So before we start, everyone, here we go. I'm going to review a little bit on the previous meeting. Can you see my screen, everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So I'm going to get straight to the point about the 4 kernels of social constructionism. Thank you for reading last week, and thank you for using it well in your task. So the first kernel is the objective truth. In the objective truth, everyone, we have the content analysis of the text. With content analysis is one of a research method in which we see the content meaning of a particular text that we observe. We can see 2 things here. Something that or the content that is presented superficially within the text based on its appearance. However, we can also make interpretation from the content analysis. When we talk about objective truth, of course, we talk about something general that people generally understand or accept as a truth. Every text usually will be produced based on particular perspective. I think if we read some news stories, for example, it will be clear for us to understand if the news item is written by a woman or a man, for example, or whether it is written by pro-LGBT people, for example, or by people who don't agree with LGBT issue. It's usually very clear. So it is clear the perspective that one piece of news is offering to look at from the issue. Our job as a reader and as a researcher at this point is then to know if there is anything new within the presented text or particular news item. And then again, in the objective truth, we need to know the tools that is employed by the writers in drawing a picture of social reality. Do you see the writer as presenting herself or himself in the story, representing or making it clear for the readers that she or he is writing it based on their personal or professional opinion? Are they talking about more subjects, more people in the text, and how the presence of these people suggests the historical agency? And from all of this, then we will see in which social change the text will proceed. Any question about objective truth so far? All right, I'm going to take it as a no. The next one is the second kernel, the contextual and historical specificity. So there is something unique sometimes based on history and based on culture. For example, features of Indonesian historical specificities, it will only deal with our society, what we understood as a member of society in Indonesia, and how do this specificity and uniqueness come to be understood as a general idea for the whole of people in Indonesia, and how these commonalities begin. For example, Ibu Effie here gave us an idea or an example about the PKI labeling. We tend to have a very general idea that PKI is negative. That's about all. This is what's been told to us in history subjects at school, SD, SMP, for example, that if anything is dealing with PKI, that's negative. And that's how we have this uniqueness, we have this specificities and commonalities as Indonesian to understand this issue as something negative. We have more example, but I think we get the basic idea already. The third kernel, everyone, language. Of course, if you are learning literature or linguistics, this will be familiar to us. You might have learned in your sociolinguistics or discourse analysis studies that when we use language, sometimes one language in one certain topic and in different topic will be different. So that's why we come to know about the discourses in political life, discourses in education, discourses in news stories and everything. And within this discourse, we would know what people say, how and from what position they say it. Are they putting themselves as a higher position, telling people to do things, for example? We can also see why some people speak more loudly than others. When I say more loudly, of course, this is not literal, meaning that somebody might be more explicit, more vocal, more brave than other people. We can understand this by one of the kernels, which is the language or the discourse. And of course, within this kernel, we can see the challenges that might hamper their ability to express themselves. For example, as people who live in Indonesia, for example, we have certain taboo topics that can't be talked about openly in public, for example. This might hamper our ability to express ourselves about something. Let's take, for example, the issue of LGBT, for example. As a general issue in Indonesia, this might not be as widely acceptable than those that's probably happening in Western countries, for example. And this might hamper ourselves from expressing our ideas about this issue. And then the fourth kernel, everyone, the plural worldviews. I can see in your assignment that not very many people are using this kernel. In relation to language that we just discussed, language can be interpreted in various ways. However, when one discourse is then compared to the other discourse, or when one discourse is positioned among different other discourses, then we can see some competing discourses around the issues.
So I observed a societal issue about LGBT. So the article was written by senior researcher, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender rights. So his name is Kylie Knight, and the article is published in Nikkei Asian Review. So that's a website about review in many aspects in Asian. So mainly it talks about his critics. That I think that's very subjective critics because, of course, he's a pro-LGBT person, and he thinks that it is surprising for a country that has message unity in diversity to become an anti-LGBT country.
That is such a strong statement, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, let's go.
Now let's focus on one of the kernels of social constructionism, so the objective truth. So the text is meant to teach us to respect others and prevent violence just because someone has a different sexual orientation from the others. Like we should respect someone no matter their sexual orientation. So the perspective of the text is from pro-LGBT people, like who feel pity for the LGBT community in Indonesia. And it seems that the article is too subjective. Like it is only state that Indonesia has message unity in diversity, but doesn't talk about Pancasila as Indonesia's national principle. Like it's written that conservative activists sought to explicitly outlaw all sex, outside marriage, and same-sex conduct by petitioning the Constitutional Court. And he continued with the statement that Indonesian couples do not get legally married because of the difficulties registering and so far and so on. I think they should consider some points like the principle of Indonesia that believe in one and the only God. So they should have religion that accepted in Indonesia, and no one of the religions allow LGBT. So the second point is most of Indonesia people are Muslim, which prohibits sexual relations before marriage and same gender. So I think he should consider this also. And third point is there are only 6 religions approved in Indonesia. So of course, it will be difficult for those who have unrecognized religions to get married. Well, I think that's all. Yeah.
This is very nice. What I mean by very nice is that when we talk about objective truth, even though this is explained or this is described as a kernel of social constructionism that sees an issue as a widely acceptable issue or truth, for example. But still, when an issue is put out in public, there is some perspective that can still be seen very obviously. The writer of this news is obviously a pro LGBT. However, he might not understand or he might not be aware about other social issues in Indonesia that is opposed to his perspective. Just like what Salsabila, can everybody see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. So everyone, Orientalism is a concept offered by Edward Said. He was born in an English family when his family was assigned as a job in British India, if I'm not mistaken. Wait up, I might be mistaken. I will. Oh, sorry. I was talking about Rudyard Kipling, so I was wrong. Again, sorry. Edward Said is a Palestinian American literary theorist, and he's also a cultural critic. His work mostly is in the post-colonial and in the postmodern issues, and he has his most outstanding work is in the critique of Orientalism. For Edward Said, everyone, Orientalism has a negative connotation, has a bad word. So, not a bad word, just a bad idea, a negative idea. So when we talk about Orientalism, probably what's in your mind is about Asian culture in general, as opposed to that of the Western culture in general. And for a long time, Asia has not been seen as something higher than Western society. So we tend to be put as secondary from the Western society. But is it fantasy or is it reality? You will tell me from your observation. In Orientalism, we have some jargons or some terminology that we need to understand to fully understand the concept of Orientalism. When we have the terminology or the term Orient, everyone, it is to say that a person is Oriental. And this is to designate that a person as someone whose language, whose geography, whose history were the stuff of learned treatises. It was often meant that as a derogatory expression or a negative expression, signifying a lesser breed of human being. Edward Said can be very strong in describing what Orientalism and Orient is, like what you see in this quote. But again, many literature or references about Orientalism tend to relate Orientalism with exoticism, as a glamour, as a mystery, and as a promise. And an Orientalist, if somebody is learning deep about Orientalism, then it's a erudite, scholarly, mainly academic, specializing in the languages and the histories in the East. And of course, what we mean by the East is those in Asia in general. Orientalism is then understood as a constellation of knowledge which underlies Western attitude towards the West, because the West tended to perceive the East as half-human, childlike, savage, and they also tend to think of Orientalism as exotic, and sometimes it then, at some points, it may legitimize colonization, like what we have experienced for many years. And the way we understand the term Orient is that it is based on the Orient's special place in the European Western experience. So we know as a truth that a lot of Western countries has occupied Asian countries way in the past, and probably right until now. The main argument about Orientalism is usually when Western people write about the Orient, the perception of the East pervade in them, and suspect and cannot be taken at face value. The history of European colonial rule and political domination of the East distorts the writings of even the most knowledgeable, well-meaning, and sympathetic Western Orientalists. Okay, everyone. Then about Rudyard Kipling, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to put it as a pair work. So you can decide on a partner, somebody that you can work with, and then you are going to discuss with your partner about the questions, the 3 questions that we have at the end of Rudyard Kipling's poem. And then you're going to elaborate that in the written form, and you can put this up in G class. I will post it in the G class after this, after my meeting in the afternoon, maybe. I think it is agreed, yeah? You are going to do the Kipling poem as a pair work. Again, I'm inviting somebody to talk about the perspective of Asian. Oh, sorry, the perspective about Western and Asian. Anybody else would like to share? All right, everybody's very quiet. If you like, you can also post your idea about this in the WhatsApp group or in the Google Classroom, so that you can probably talk or give your idea more freely in a private place such as G class. Everyone, in the next meeting, we will have asynchronous meeting, so we will not have a meeting like this. And Ibu Sylvia Mahfiro is going to facilitate the discussion on the next meeting. Ibu Sylvia, do you want to introduce yourself to the students?
All right, thank you, Ma'am Yus. Hello, everyone. So starting from next week for about 4 meetings or maybe more than 4 meetings, I will be in charge of this class. So I hope we can work together. So my name is Sylvia, or you can call me Miss Sylvia or Sylvia, that is fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Sylvia. Yes, everyone, that's what we're going to have starting from the next meeting. Anissa and Stefano, thank you so much for opening your camera. I feel that I'm not alone in this virtual room. Do you have anything else to say, Anissa? Do you have an opinion about Western Asian? No. Okay. So again, everyone, you are going to decide on a partner to work on Kipling's poem and make an interpretation to answer the 3 questions at the end of the poem. Thank you so much for the meeting today. I will see you again at the next meeting. Ibu Sylvia will be in charge. However, I will tag along, so I will be with her as well in the class, okay? Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
See you.